Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Namibian Motorsport Federation 2023 eSports Series. Today, we are doing round 5 of the series. So we're at the midway point. This is the German touring cars around. This is the great Suzuka, International Suzuka circuit. It's fast, it's flowing. It's the only figure 8 circuit on the championship. I'm your commentator Dennis Mitchell, and today I'm not joined by Sean Woodgate. I am indeed joined by Peter Murray. Good afternoon, Peter.
Good afternoon, Dennis, and afternoon to our viewers. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm stoked to be on the bench, if I can say that, but yeah, medical reasons do dictate. So if the doctor says that's the way that it has to go, then that's the way that it has to go. And yeah.
All right, so this, of course, is round 5 of the championship. So next week we'll be heading over to round 6 in Road Atlanta, which will be the British touring cars. Round 7 from Road America will be again in the German. Then round 8, Lime Rock Park in the British. Round 9, Hockenheim in the German. And the final round, either Alton Park or Tony Rust, hopefully Tony Rust, in the British cars. So Tony Rust is still on the cards. We're not sure if it's going to be ready yet, but we are pushing hard for that. So fingers crossed we can end the series on the only national circuit of Namibia. The drivers at the moment are just busy finishing up practice. So while they are finishing up, about to go into qualifying, the point structure is 20 points for first place, 18 points for second, 16 points for third, and it goes down to by 2 points until they get down to P7. Then it's down by 1 point all the way down to 15th place. There's an additional point for pole position and an extra point for the fastest lap. And our current standings coming into this round, we've had the 2 dropped rounds applied. So at the moment, after all the dropped rounds, we have Adrian Nel currently leading by 1 point over Jean-Andre de Toy, and Jandre Duppenaar in the 3rd place on 38 points, only 4 points shy of the lead. Richard Sellier, 32 points. Peter Murray, you're on 28 points, tied with Andre Besson, who is not here today. Wayne Kruger also not here today in P7 on 24 points. JP Sellier on 22 points in P8. Dirk Kutzer also not here today in P9, 16 points. Donovan Tremark in P10 with 8 points, and I believe he's tied actually in P10. There's another driver also on 8 points. So a couple of drivers actually tied on points. So that is going to be very, very close as the championship unfolds.
Yeah, well, currently with the timings and the stuff running, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting race. For myself, I have to hope that Donovan and JP stay back so I can keep that 5th place. But between Adrian Nel, Jean-Andre de Toy, only 2 points separating them, and their timing currently with the practice rounds with the practice round that they had now, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with their championship points going forward. And of course, Jandre Duppenaar also not far behind at all. So it is going to be very, very interesting, this race.
Alright, so qualifying is officially live. So we are now into the qualifying series, round. This is a 15-minute round, so the drivers have 15 minutes to put in a lap. They can, of course, if they start a lap with a second to go, they can finish the lap. So all the drivers have 15 minutes, and probably, if they're lucky, maybe close to 17 minutes, because a lap is low 1 minute 50s. We've seen 1 minute 51s in the practice sessions prior to this.
Let me, if I can just get this live timing working again. I think Adrian Nel was on a 151.3 and Jean-Andre de Toy was on a 151.6, I believe, or something like that. So yeah, even if they have 2 minutes left, that's still enough time if you're lucky to get that fastest lap put in.
So Jean-Andre de Toy has been the pace setter. Adrian Nel has been his closest competition, but seems to be struggling to keep the car on the track. So we'll see as he progresses. He does sometimes drive very aggressively, but I've also noticed that some of the previous rounds he is aggressive in the laps coming up to qualifying in the race, but then by the race time he sort of dials it back a bit. So he's one of those drivers that does seem to push the limits, to find the limits, and then he knows where to keep it, and he seems to get more consistent in the races. So fingers crossed he can challenge Jandre. But Jandre has definitely been the pace setter. Adrian has been there or thereabouts within half a second. Then there's been a bit of a gap to third, and it's very, very close after third.
Yeah, between third, fourth, and fifth, I think there was less than 2 seconds separating all of them. And with this being such a high-speed track, and these being very high-speed cars and very difficult to control, with them having no assists to help the drivers at all through the corners, I think this race might come down to tyre wear and who strategizes their pit stop if they decide to take a pit stop. Let's see how let's call it ballsy the drivers can be with trying to run through an entire race on one set of tires. I think at the end of the day, the pit stop is going to be the determining factor between the first 5 positions at least.
Definitely, there's going to be pit stops. The tires just won't last. I think the nature of the track being fast and flowing, it's definitely going to put a lot more load through the tires. So we will see pit stops, and I think the drivers that prepare for the pit stops, you can also let your pit crew know that you are coming in for a pit stop. If you do that, I think you need to give about a 30-second warning. Then your pit stop will be several seconds a lap faster. So the drivers that prepare for their pit stops correctly will also gain an advantage on track.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen in previous races that we've had, when you get your pit stop set up before you enter, actually, that shaves off an insane amount of time. It can be anything between 15 seconds and up to 25 seconds, just for letting them know, listen boys, I'm coming in, so get the stuff ready. So yeah, definitely getting that pit stop strategy properly sorted is going to be a big determining factor.
Definitely. I think it also depends on the cars. Certain cars will be slower than others, and some will be faster than others. I think a Formula car would maybe be quicker, so you wouldn't gain as much. But a car like this, a sedan, maybe the pit stops are a bit slower because of the bulkiness of the car, and that's maybe why you gain a bit more time with the pit crew being more prepared.
Yes, definitely. Also, with these cars, you have to put in the correct amount of fuel from the get-go. You cannot do fuel during pit stops. You can only do tires. So the drivers also have to calculate their fuel properly and make sure they have the correct amount of fuel in to pull them through these entire 35 minutes of the race.
So lap times are starting to come in. We have Jean-Louis de Toy in a 1:51.877. In second place, Yandre Duppenaar. In third place, Donovan Vermaak. In fourth place, I believe it's JP Sillier. Adrian Nel is in fifth place. Those are the only times currently in.
It seems that Adrian might be struggling a bit with traction, still trying to get some heat into the tires. But yeah, he's a long way off from where he was during practice. And I see now also Mornay de Toy also just put in a time now, 2 minutes. 2 minutes and 2 minutes 00756. So yeah, the time's definitely increasing. Yandre still has about a second that he can shave off of his time, a little bit less than a second. And Jean-Louis de Toy also has a few hundredths that he can still shave off of his time.
All right, let's have a look at Yandre heading into the final sector. Looked like he actually rolled off slightly there, so I'm not sure if he's just prepping still. He is on a flying lap, but it does sound like he's rolling off on the throttle quite a lot. So maybe this is a warm-up lap.
It could be that they're still busy warming up their tires, with it still being the second lap only now. So yeah, with these tracks as well, in general, your tire wear, there's no point in pushing very hard for in the first 1 or 2 or 3 laps while the tires are still cold. You'll just wear them off much quicker than needed.
Donovan Vermaak heading into turn 1. Let's go on board with a lap and head through the S's. My favorite part of the track. I love this part because of the flowing nature, and just sort of gets tighter and tighter.
And also this brilliant neon chrome orange skin of Donovan. It's just looking lovely.
Looks great, yes.
Yeah, it really looks great. But yeah, with these, to get back to the track, with these cars being, let's call them aerodynamically engineered cars, in general, the faster you go and the better your setup is, the more traction you'll have if your setup is set up correctly. So if the guys have their downforce and their wings and their splitters and everything dialed in properly for those S's, I believe that can be a very, very fast section on this track. And of course, also if you should line yourself up wrong for the first S, you're going to have difficulties through the rest of them as well.
Yeah, these cars, of course, do have DRS, so this is a track where you want to set the car up for the downforce sections, because you're going to gain a lot more time in the downforce sections with downforce than you will gain on the fast sections with lower drag. You'll also have a lot more stable car if you go for the downforce, and then if you use the DRS, then at least you gain on the straights and you gain in the corners with a high downforce. So it's a beneficial type of setup to go a little bit more downforce than no downforce.
No, definitely. We saw Mornay there coming out of that one, I almost want to call it a fast sweeping corner, also just getting ever so slightly sideways. And that just goes to show once again how difficult and tricky it can be to drive these cars with the amount of power that they have. In correlation with having zero ABS, zero traction control, it is a fine dance to get it coming out of a corner fast without you having the back end step out and possibly losing it and going into the wall.
We saw him just coming out of Spoon, got a little bit on the curb and the car getting a little bit loose. Now I think also with a bit more wing you don't have that much of aggression on the curbs, so the car doesn't break loose quite as much. But otherwise looking a little bit smoother on this lap.
Another thing that we do as well is try and get the car as low as possible without it bottoming out. And sometimes it does happen on some of the tracks that the curves are a little bit more aggressive, and in correlation with a low car, the effect of the curb can actually be different between every driver, due to the fact that I might have my car a little bit lower than the next person. And then the curb affecting me a little bit different than the guy in front of me or behind me or wherever they might be on the track.
Jandre Dippenaar is on a personal best in Sector 1. He did come across some traffic. JP was there. Looks like he's still warming up slightly on this lap. Did give way to allow him past. But let's see if his middle sector, if it was too much of a detriment having some traffic.
We see, we're checking on the live timings. We see Adrian Ellis now bumped up all the way to first position with a 151.6. Jandre de Tooy 151.8. Jandre Dippenaar 153.1. Donovan Vermaak 153.1. Mornay de Tooy 156.0. And JP Soulier 158.4. TJ has yet to put in a lap time, so we'll still keep an eye on TJ as well.
He was on a lap and he had set a Sector 2 time and then pitted, so I'm not sure if he had an incident. I didn't see the yellow come up. Jandre did indeed get a personal best in Sector 2, so let's see if his time does improve. I think he's a little bit too far off to challenge for second at the moment. He's about to come across the line. Let's see how much he does improve his time, but didn't have the greatest final sector, but jumps up on a 152.7.
So he took about 400s off of his time.
And we see Donovan's losing it. Very aggressive on the throttle. The car is very hard on the power.
The curse of the BMW, the curse.
Right, let's have a look at TJ. He is indeed on a lap. The strange thing is it's showing that he is on a timed lap.
And you haven't spun it around in a circle, then you definitely haven't tried to push it hard enough. It happens to everyone, unfortunately.
It's definitely one of those cars that you think you've got on top of it and then just suddenly bites you.
Definitely. But it's an amazing car to drive. It's really a fun car, with it being so high powered and so raw, actually, where you know the car is only going to do exactly what you tell it to do. There's nothing that's going to keep you from spinning around. There's nothing that's going to keep you from braking too hard. So in this car, it does purely come down to the driver, in my opinion, obviously.
This car, although it looks like a BMW, there's very little BMW in it from the road going. This is based off the M4. Basically, this is a Formula car with a car shell dropped on top of it. It is a complete prototype. It was designed for the German touring car series, but it was abandoned when the rules changed to a more in line with the GT3 spec. So this car had already been designed by BMW, but it was never completed and manufactured or actually raced. So they handed over the plans and the details and all the design info that they could to developers of rFactor, and they've gracefully been given this for free. So that's what we are racing. So it's effectively a Formula car with a shell on it, so it drives like a Formula car. That's why it has the DRS, it has the power to weight ratio of a Formula car. It's incredibly high revving engine. Let's go on board with Gendre. He's on an outlap, coming up to the final sector.
Adrian Nel also bettered his time by quite a bit to a 150.6.
Adrian has definitely found what he needed to find.
Definitely. But we'll see during the race as well. Remember, this is now qualifying, so the guys run with a little amount of fuel. They push as hard as they can during these 15 minutes of qualifying, and during a race, oh, we see Andre getting a little bit
Nicely held though.
almost, yeah, very nicely held. So yeah, the drivers push much harder during qualifying than what they would during those 35 minutes of racing. 35 minutes sound like a long time. If the viewers at home think about 30 minutes and half an hour, you can get quite a bit done in half an hour. Half an hour goes by so quickly on this track, except for the last 10 minutes, 5 minutes, when you're battling with worn tires, you're battling to make up a little bit of space. And usually you'll also see mistakes happen either very early on in the race or in the last couple of minutes in the race, when the guys just try to get the absolute last bit of grunt out of the car, out of the tires, out of the fuel that they have. And that either then leads most of the times to spectacular close finishes or big problems on the second or third last corner.
I see we're also down a driver, so Richard he was in the practice. I think he has been having some technical issues, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make the race. He will have a few minutes to join in after qualifying, so fingers crossed.
I did see a message come through. I believe Richard is suffering. Yes, he's got hardware problems with his steering wheel. I hope he gets that sorted out for the next race.
Yeah, unfortunately, a few of our drivers having issues, work issues, or just other reasons why they can't make it today. So, unfortunately, lower numbers today. Next week we should have high numbers again.
Yeah, I believe from next week on.
Gendre just sorry the button. Gendre just crosses the line in time, so I think he can finish this lap. Qualifying is officially over now. Adrian has pitted. If Gendre improves now, then this is. But I think he got a bit too sideways there. Yeah. He could possibly steal pole position, but he is 1.2 seconds shy at the moment, so quite a long way back.
Maybe he catches a lucky slide. There's still a few corners to go. That's also something with these cars. Sometimes it does go to your favor when you think you're going to lose it, and it's sliding, and then all of a sudden you see you're actually like a second or 2 seconds faster than what you were busy posting. So maybe he catches a lucky slide and makes up that time. I doubt it currently.
Looks like he's just cruising. Yeah, I think he's just cruising back to the pits now. And I believe he's the last driver on track, so no one will be improving. So we have Adrian now starting in first place, so he will get the point for pole position.
And fastest lap.
No, fastest lap will be in the race. This is fastest lap is the qualifying.
Okay.
All right, we're going to jump to an ad break. We'll be back shortly for the race, so stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. right, welcome back everybody. We are now live for the Namibian Motorsport Federation 2023 eSports Series. This of course is round 5, coming to you live from the Suzuka circuit in Japan. This is our race. It is a 35-minute race. The drivers are heading out on their formation lap. It is a rolling start, so they'll be following the safety car around. I'm your commentator, Dennis Mitchell. I'm not joined by Sean Woodgate today. Today I am joined by Peter Murray. Good afternoon, Peter.
Afternoon, Dennis. So yeah, let's see what this race entails for us. The qualifying was interesting now within the last couple of minutes. Guys still changing up times and going a little bit faster. Unfortunately, we have another driver that dropped out due to hardware issues, so the grid is quite small today. But nonetheless, with the times being so close on qualifying, some newer drivers jumping up a few spots and so on, I think the racing is going to be very, very interesting. But as we said now off air, the guys got to remember that it's a 35-minute race and not a 5-lap race, so they've got to still keep it on the track as well.
So Adrian now getting the extra point for pole position, so extending his lead slightly, so he will now be 2 points ahead of Jean-Andre de Toy. So Jean-Andre is going to have to beat him on track today to regain the championship lead. Of course, this is round 5, so next week we have the next round, which is Road Atlanta in the British touring cars. So that should be quite an exciting race. I think we will have high numbers there as well. There will probably be less drivers with any issues.
I hope so, Dennis. We lost about 3 drivers today, one due to hardware, not 3 drivers, 4 drivers, one due to hardware issues, other 3 drivers due to work commitments. Yeah, unfortunately, in today's day and age, with work being as difficult as it can be, work obviously takes priority. But yeah, this is still a national event, so let's hope for next weekend that we can have a full grid again as what we had. What was it, about 3 weekends ago, 4 weekends ago, when we were about 12 to 13 guys on the grid, which is a good number of drivers for Namibia at the moment. Shortly, the NMSF, I'm saying shortly now, but it can be a few months away or so on. But still, I believe in this year there will be a console side to this, to our Namibian championship as well, where we will hopefully be able to accommodate much more people, as not everybody is on PC, but there are still a few races in Namibia that are on console as well.
Okay, so we're heading into the final corner now. The safety car will peel into the pits. Drivers will hold position until they get to the start line. Right, and Adrian puts his foot down. And we're away.
And we're off.
35 minutes to go. So,
see what happens into this first corner.
There's
a lot of space.
Jean-Andre certainly looks a lot smoother just on his entry and on his exits compared to Adrian. Adrian already, you can see him sort of moving around a little bit.
I think Adrian is trying to take it as aggressive as possible, but as safe as possible, just to get a little bit of gap between him and Jean-Andre. To give Jean-Andre a little bit more of a gap to try and battle back in these 34 minutes and 10 seconds that are still remaining in this race.
So the top 4 covered by, at this point, only 2 seconds. Then in 5th place we have Monet de Toy. Monet's driving in a livery which has the national flag on his car, so for those that aren't able to spot it straight away, that is the national flag. It's the same that he has on his British touring car. So very patriotic,
very nice
running the flag.
Very nice placement of the sun on the right-hand headlight.
Yeah, that's an awesome place to have the sun.
Yeah, it actually works very well.
You just need to disable the one headlight and have just the headlight running on that one.
Yeah.
Right, back to the front. So Jean-Andre hanging in there at the moment with Adrian. Adrian was way faster in qualifying than he had been in all the other sessions, so he obviously found something. Maybe like you were saying, it's just lower fuel runs. He was really good. His setup maybe worked with lower fuel. At the moment, Genre is hanging in there with him.
Genre is about 0.4, 0.5. The gap between him and Adrian Lenz, it's 2.7 seconds to Donovan. Or Donovan is about 2.6, 2.7 seconds from Adrian. With Yandre a further 3.6 seconds behind Donovan. Behind Adrian. So the gap, the guys definitely starting to settle into their rhythm now. I think they're just trying to see what the track is going to do, what the car is going to do with temperatures, with tire wear and so on. And I believe here from about maybe the 8th lap, 9th lap, the guys will start trying to push for positions again.
Just from this shot that we're watching at the moment, it looks like Adrian is pulling a little bit, certainly through the S's, he seems a little bit faster. So maybe running a bit more downforce than Genre?
Possibly. Let me quickly see if we have a recorded top speed so far. So Adrian Nels' recorded top speed so far is 274 km an hour, and Genre is 275. So the recorded top speed for Genre is 1 kilometer per hour faster than for Adrian.
That could be slipstream.
That might actually, yeah, that could be slipstream. It's possible. And Donovan with a top speed of 274, Yandre with a top speed of 272, Mornay 272, TJ Divenaga 268, and JP Soulier 274. So all the guys top speed fairly within reach of each other. So that should then suggest more or less that their setups regarding rear wing, downforce, car height, and so on might more or less be the same. I think it'll come down to toe in, toe out, rear diff preload and stuff like that, where the guys won't be as easily willing to share some information with us Namibian guys when we drive. By you guys, Dennis, by some experience, we tend to help each other out with setups and tuning and stuff like that. But when we drive here, it's basically each man for himself. So if you're in the Discord chat and you hear some guys talking about setup a little bit, you steal with the ear without them trying to notice that you're actually listening to the conversation and not only focusing on the track in front of you.
Yandre Dippenaar are starting to challenge Donovan for Mark at the moment for 3rd place. This, of course, is for podium. Donovan has been extremely quick around this circuit, so I think this car and the combo of the car and the circuit, he definitely seems to be working very well with it.
You also see Yandre braking slightly later than Donovan into that previous corner, just to edge in that little bit closer and try and close up that gap.
Oh, we hear a little bit of wheel spin there.
Yep.
And you can see straight away Donovan pulls away a bit.
It's really noticeable, or I'm sometimes awestruck with how much time and distance you can lose between the car in front of you from something as small as a half a second's wheel spin, or the car just going ever so slightly skew through the corner, and you'll see the car in front of you jump from 2 car lengths gap to about 5 or 7 car lengths gap. I saw sparks now beneath Donovan's car. Does he have a flat wheel, or?
I did notice that in the practice session, some of the drivers getting a lot of sparks. Maybe they're running the rear end of the car a little bit lower, that it's just bottoming out slightly.
Yeah.
I believe it was Genre was the other driver that I saw lots of sparks coming off. You actually see a little bit there again. Even the front bottoming out slightly, so maybe just running very, very low. That beautiful best drive livery.
Oh, I love it. But yeah, orange and black. I love anything that's orange and black, basically. So, but yeah, with the sparks that we can see from underneath some of the cars, that clearly shows you the different types of setups that the guys are running. With the guys running a little bit higher cars or a little bit less downforce, you won't see that as easily. It was just odd to see that amount of sparks from, it looked like, on my view, like from the front right side wheel. But yeah, probably going into a braking zone or something like that, and then...
There we see sparks for a different reason. JP just running off slightly, and obviously the curb sticks up more than the track, so it bottomed out, and there were the curbs. Sorry, the sparks, as we see TJ in the background, unfortunately, running off. JP had just taken the place from TJ. And now it looks like TJ's run wide, so I think TJ having a little bit of an oopsie there.
I think TJ had a little bit of target fixation on JP in the front and then forgot his braking marker into that corner, unfortunately. That does happen sometimes. I've also fell victim to that a bunch of times.
So at the moment, Adrian now is pulling away quite a lot from Jean Du Toit. 3.8 second gap at the moment. But I'm not sure, maybe Ty's strategy will be different. Is he going to go aggressive and then pit early, or is he going to maybe just go aggressive and see how long it lasts? Maybe Jean-Andre is being very, very conservative to try and have a longer stint in the... They're all going to have pit stops, so maybe Jean-Andre is just playing a different strategy. So we'll see how that pans out.
We can also see now, I think the guys on their racing setups, they're running a little bit less downforce on their rear wings and stuff, because I see the top speeds are higher by about 2 to 3 kilometers an hour than what it was in qualifying, but their lap times are about a second slower. For example, Adrian Nels' fastest lap now is a 152.3, and he was on a 150.8, I believe it was, in qualifying.
Could also just be the fuel difference. They're obviously running full tanks now.
Yeah, I forgot about that actually.
I believe you guys are running full tanks for the races. I think it's enough. Or is it shy of a full tank?
I'm not sure on this track, Dennis, to be very honest with you. But yeah, on most of the tracks, the fuel is enough in these BMWs. But yeah, you run full fuel. If it's not full, then it's about 5 or 10 liters less than full, just to try and gain a little bit of weight, or just to try and shave a little bit of weight. But yeah, I'm not sure how much fuel the guys are running now. I believe... I'm talking under correction, but I believe these BMWs can take 112 liters and then it's completely full, or 120 liters, which doesn't sound a lot, but 120 or 115 kilograms extra in a car as light as this makes a huge difference in handling and speed. And I mean, we can already see that just in the lap times currently from where their lap times were in qualifying.
Speaking of lap times, on the previous lap, Jean-Andre did a 156.3 and Adrian a 54.5. The gap has come down by 0.6 from Jean-Andre to Adrian, so maybe Jean-Andre just had a bit of a moment and he's regrouped. Lap times now were 55.2 for Adrian and a 55.1 for Jean-Andre. So Jean-Andre pulling back slightly, taking a 10th back from Adrian. So maybe whatever's happened, maybe the car when it's heavy fuel just doesn't drive the way he would like it. Maybe his setup will come better, maybe he comes better and he's more comfortable at the end, but starting to get his flow by the looks of things.
Yeah, and with Adrian also, as we saw in the first lap and the second lap, him pushing so hard, there is also a slight possibility that he may have cooked his front tires, or we're seeing it going sideways a little bit. It could be that Adrian maybe cooked his tires a little bit, and now he also has to back down just ever so slightly just to cool them down. And maybe with Jean-Andre holding back a little bit, he's now in a perfect position where he can push a little bit harder to try and close that gap.
These cars do look good on track. They just look like proper race cars.
Oh, it's an awesome car to drive, and the amount of detail that the Studio 397, the developers of rFactor, the amount of detail that they put into the car. This is now completely something off of racing commentating topic, but for the few guys of us that drive on VR goggles, the ability to actually look around inside the car and see the brake bias adjusters and see the ECUs and stuff mounted onto the ground, it just completely gives it an entire different level of immersion. So yeah, there he goes.
And he's passed.
Oh.
It's about as close as you can get it.
Oh.
I think Donovan was thinking about sneaking around the outside there and ran out of road.
Yeah, but they actually went through those, what do you call those, S-turns as well. I almost wanted to say a chicane, but yeah, that's not really a chicane. But yeah, they actually went through there quite well. Donovan kept it together quite good, without running off of the track or not getting target fixated. Still remember that he actually had to brake for that corner. So yeah, the gap not that big as of yet between the two of them.
Notice Donovan now getting a bit more slidey, so maybe his setup was more focused at the start and he's maybe gone a bit aggressive, because he did seem to pull away from Yandre, and then Yandre started to slowly claw him back, and as we've seen, he's got past now.
Yeah.
Maybe tyres are an issue for Donovan, because he had the pace, he out-qualified him, and he seemed to have the pace at the start. But we're over 10 minutes into the race, and it looks like he's starting to struggle already. The front end was sliding going into the S's.
10 minutes into the race with these cars are... It does feel like a lifetime sometime, with tire wear definitely starting to become an issue now. I wouldn't actually say tire wear as much. I believe around about here the guys will still have about between 90 and 87% of tire wear or tire percentage left, but the temperature, the track temp at the moment is 42 degrees and the ambient temperature 27 degrees. So not only tire wear but tire temperature, and with these cars only being able to run dry tires, there aren't a variant of wets, hards, mediums or softs. You are limited to only basically play around with your tire pressures and your cambers to try and make your tire wear longer or less, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, as I said earlier, setup makes a huge difference on these cars, and will definitely play a huge role on how quick your tires wear off and how quick they heat up and how quick they cool down again.
We see Donovan ran wide there. I think it was through 180R, at fast left-hander. Didn't really back out of it much, so I'm not sure if you'll get a warning for track limits there. You probably will.
Well, let's see if our stewards bring something up. I see we have got had a yellow in sector 3 now. I wonder if that was Donovan just going off the track that it brought up that yellow.
It could have been, yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly in the S's here, it looks like Donovan is falling back slightly from Yandre.
See what happens with this corner, because he did have some problems in qualifying, keeping it together around that corner, but that looked perfect.
There, once again, he turns in. You can see the back end comes out, and then the car sort of drifts forward, sliding, and then sort of gathers itself up again. So he's definitely having some grip issues, but he's catching Yandre at this section of the track.
I see again on the timings between Adrian and Jean-Ray. Jean-Ray is struggling again with being 200 slower than Adrian on the previous lap.
It seems to be fluctuating, but maybe as the tire wear is kicking in, we'll see the different setups, different strategies. Maybe he's pacing himself. We have seen Adrian struggle with tire wear in these cars in the previous races.
Yeah, that's the one thing that luckily comes into play. No matter where on the grid you are, or no matter who you are on track, everybody has tire wear. Everybody is battling with the same track temperatures. Everybody is battling with the same amount of fuel in the cars, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 liters here or there. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, it comes down to that rear wing at the back, trying to get as much speed as possible through the corners, not as much on the straights, but also keeping the tire temperatures down as much as possible. Adrian has struggled in the past with this car with tire wear, but we've also seen Adrian pull through on one set of tires where we actually, both Adrian and Jean-Ray pulled through on one set of tires where we had I wouldn't say discussed beforehand, but where all of the drivers before the race had started had said, yeah, listen boys, we definitely have to go and pit stop. And then those two, they pull it through. Yeah, it doesn't look like very nice racing to the end of it, because there's physically no tires left. But still being able to pull through and still get a good result on completely worn out tires is something that those two guys in front, Adrian and Jean-Ray de Toy, are able to do.
While you're talking, they're just watching the onboards here from Donovan. Through the S's, he's noticeably slower than Yandre, and then he starts to catch. He unfortunately lost it just before going under the bridge, and I think lost a bit of momentum, but he was catching at quite a rate. So definitely a different setup or driving style or something playing to the different sectors of the track. We've also seen TJ unfortunately is a DNF at the moment, so having lost it. Oh, Donovan drifting off track there.
I believe Mornay de Toy also went to the pits. So maybe that can count in his favor, going in the race forward with him having a set of fresh tires and stuff on now, with the other guys still having to pit. That might help him gain some positions again, or at least one position again from JP Soulier. But the thing with Donovan and Jandre, it might be that Jandre is running his rear wing slightly higher, giving him the advantage to go through the corners faster, and Donovan running it slightly lower, with him going on the straights faster.
So speaking of Monet, so Monet is driving a bit slow. It looks like he's going back in the pits, so possibly a pit penalty. No. Maybe he was caught speeding in the pits. And he comes, let's see, is it a drive-through or is it a stop and go? It might just be a drive-through. Then we know it's probably for speeding in the pits. It certainly looks like it's a drive-through. It looks like he might actually have a stop-go.
It might be that he had a problem with setting up his pit stop, and the pit crew actually didn't change his tires, and they only wasted his time on the first round in, or on the first.
Let's see on the timer now.
Into the pit stop.
Yeah, it's gone over the 10 seconds, so it's not a stop go. So that is a pit stop, unless he came in to serve a penalty and now he's coming in to do a pit stop, or he's not. Yeah, DNF.
Did not finish.
Obviously having some issues and now having to exit. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the sim can give you various penalties. The drivers don't always see where the notification pops up. So you do get a notification board that pops up and it'll tell you what penalty you need to serve. But sometimes the drivers don't see it and they serve the incorrect penalty. So then they get penalized for not serving the correct penalty. So they get another penalty and then eventually you get a DNF if you don't serve it within 3 laps.
Yeah, in the heat of the moment, I've been a victim to that as well, where the stop and go penalty, the two little arrows with a stripe between them, and the drive-through penalty that are just the two little arrows. In the heat of the moment and just wanting to get back on track, you misjudge which penalty you actually have to take, and then go out one lap, and as soon as you leave the pitch, you see, but listen, my penalty hasn't been served yet. And then you notice, oh, it was a stop and go, it wasn't a drive-through penalty. And that is very frustrating sometimes, but with being a racing driver, that's one of the things that you have to practice and make sure that you see the correct message and you glance over to the correct place on the screen, to make sure that you serve the correct penalty the first time around.
Yeah, this is a proper simulator. It simulates everything in the motorsport, so you can't speed in the pits, you can't exit the pits incorrectly. All these things are monitored, so you have to be very, very alert, like you do in the real world. In the real world, you're constantly alert of everything. So here, once again, drivers being caught out by the smallest of things. So JP is actually starting to do a little bit better as well. So nice to see JP starting to get to grips with the car.
I wonder honestly what happened to TJ, if he had a catastrophic failure on his car, like with this, as said previously, with this being a proper sim. If you do hit the wall too hard, you can lose a wheel, you can lose your engine completely. You can have catastrophic mechanical failure on your vehicle. If I'm not mistaken, we also have something called unexpected moments, where anything can actually happen to your vehicle while you're driving, just as in normal real racing. Nobody goes to a racetrack to have a top gasket blown 5 minutes into the race. Nobody plans for that, or nobody wants that to happen on purpose. But with this being such a good simulator, all of those types of instances can occur as well.
So once again, we see Donovan catching up to Andre, and neither of them have yet been into the pits. In fact, none of the drivers apart from Monet have been into the pits. and Monet we've seen with the DNF. So we'll see as the race progresses. There's 13 minutes left. How many of the drivers are going to chance it and try and get to the end? A pit stop is obviously very timely.
With 30 minutes left, that's basically halfway. It's a little bit more than halfway. But yeah, with a small gap between Jandre and Donovan currently, Jandre doesn't have a gap to go to the pits. And with Donovan so close behind him, should Jandre decide to go into the pits, that'll give Donovan the perfect gap to put himself one lap ahead of Jandre. So yeah, I think the last few minutes, the last 10, last 8 minutes are going to be very interesting.
Oh, you see Donovan off. That's such a shame. Well, it looks like he didn't damage the car. Let's see if he can catch, because he does seem to have the speed on Jandre, but he just can't get past. So let's see, can he regroup? Are his tires going to be okay after that? Did he flat spot them perhaps? Are they going to be covered with sand maybe? Let's see, can he regroup and can he catch?
I think that knock on the wall on the right hand side might have buggered up his wheel alignment a little bit, so he might be sitting with the steering wheel pointing at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 9 o'clock at the moment, which does make it difficult to drive, but it's still definitely doable. And as you can see, the gap between the two of them is not that big. Donovan did not lose as much room as what it looked like. Let's see what the gap is between them currently. About, the maths don't fail me now, but about, what's that, 8 seconds. About 8 seconds between Donovan and Jandre.
Car looks like it might be okay. He looked alright through the final chicane there. So maybe he was lucky in that light brush with the wall. Or I say light, it wasn't a little bit heavier than just a light brush, but maybe he's come off alright there. It looks like the bodywork is a bit crumpled on the right hand side, but the wheels look like they are all in line.
Pointing straight.
Seems like he's able to at least get through the S's alright. So let's see the gap, how the gap does. Lap time wise, we will see at the end of this lap how he compares. He has just over 10 minutes left to go. So the man that he'll be chasing for a podium spot, of course, is Jandre Duppenau. Oh, Jandre losing it there.
Oh,
That was, I believe Donovan has just hit the barrier himself.
oh.
We heard it in the background and we saw the smoke. So the two of them struggling at the moment. This could be tire wear playing a part in the race. So maybe they've chanced it and the tires have just gone off the cliff.
This is definitely tire wear, Dennis. Would actually be interesting to see what is happening between Adrian and Jandre, as there's less than 200ths of a second between their last lap times. There's a massive gap between them, but definitely tire wear into the last, 10 minutes. We just hit the last 10-minute mark. Tire wear now is going to be horrid. There's no other way of explaining it, but there isn't enough time. It's not worth it to try and go into the pits now unless you have at least a 20 to 30 second gap between you and the guy behind you.
Well, that could depend.
So yeah, I think that
depends on how bad the tires fall off the cliff. If they are so bad that you are losing, let's say 5 or 6 seconds a lap, then you can still make it up.
definitely.
So as we can see here, Adrian is definitely fighting the car and he's having to hesitate on the throttle a lot. His last lap was a 157.
Sorry for interrupting you, but Jandre also just put in a quicker lap than Adrian. Not by much, but he's still quicker.
But their lap times are about 5 seconds off the pace. So if they were to pit, they will have lower fuel and fresh tires. They could suddenly gain 5, maybe 6 seconds the next lap. But would that be enough? Would there be enough time for them to bridge the gap?
That's another thing. Jandre was about 20 seconds behind them in third. He's now, or not behind them, behind Adrian. He's now only 16 seconds behind Adrian. So that gap is already closing.
Jandre is usually the smoother of the two. He's also looking very, very ragged at the moment with the worn tires. So I think they're going to try and push it to the end. I think if anyone had done a pit stop, they would have, at this point, be gaining. But I don't think any of them have, unless we've missed it. As far as I can see, no one has done a pit stop yet. So I think everyone will be on the same, or in the same boat.
Struggling together, fighting the tire wear and overcooked tires and tire wear. And yeah, that's of course another thing with this track, with it being such a high-speed track. There's actually no way to get around the tire wear, despite minor changes in setup and stuff like that. But you will definitely not have a driver, in my opinion, that's left with 85% tire wear and a driver left with 46% tire wear. I think all of them are most likely going to end up in the vicinity of around between 60 and 40%. 60%, it still actually sounds a bit high. But yeah, not having driven the car on this track, I can't actually speak for that. But yeah, we won't see tires still having a bunch of tread left on them after this, or a bunch of grip left on them after this. There's no way.
So lap time wise, on the previous lap, Adrian did a 56.5 and Jeandre did a 56.7. So managing to pull back a bit of time over Jeandre there. We had Jeandre dipping on a 58.3. We had Donovan van Mark on a 58.5. For those two, also the gap slightly increased. So it looks like everyone is just settling at the moment, not doing anything too risky.
Yeah, I believe at this point in the race, everybody's just like, okay, listen, I'll just take my points for this position that I'm in. Because it's still good points. That's something that's actually not nice about drivers not finishing a race. With the grid being so small, you can still move up quite a bit in the championship position with the amount of points available. So I think everybody's basically just, oh, we see JP into the pits now.
That was quite
Did
strange.
not have a penalty, so I wonder if he decided to try and go for a fresh set of tires. But yeah, I think most of the guys have settled into their position, just decided, listen, I'll just take my points for this position. There's no point in pushing it and possibly pushing the car into the wall and completely ruining the position that you have. Even if there are gaps between drivers, and some of them quite substantial gaps, 4 seconds to 10 seconds, you lose them quick with one problem on a track or with one mistake on a track.
Just watching Adrian now, he seems to be a bit smoother at the moment, so I'm not sure if the grip has returned, or maybe he's just adjusted his driving style. He's a bit ragged there, the car's sort of breaking away slightly. We can hear
He's possibly...
Oh, there we see Richard off in front of him. Hopefully Richard sees him coming. And he does.
JP.
Sorry, JP.
Might be that Adrian is enjoying the car now that it's, I almost want to say, sliding a bit. That is also something about this car that is quite fun about it. You can catch it if the sliding is moderate. Moderate's maybe quite a bit much, but yeah, if you do have a slight slide, you can catch it, and you can actually,
like that.
Please don't crucify me. Yeah, like that. You can drift it ever so slightly, but there's a very fine line between drifting it and losing it. It's almost instantaneous.
Well, there coming out of Spoon, we could see he had the rear end coming around in him, and then he just slowly applied the throttle and just used that to rotate the car, and then got on the power perfectly, lined it up onto the curb, and away he went, nice and clean.
Yeah, no, it can work perfectly in your favor.
You see him fighting the car a lot, though, the car moving around a lot, especially over the curbs there, fighting for the grip. 4 minutes left to go.
I think now in these final minutes, the wear on the front tires.
JP's back in the pits. I wonder if JP's got a penalty for maybe a track cut or something. He's trying to serve it. Ooh, sliding into the pits there. Gotta be careful, reversing in the pits isn't good thing either. Okay, he's not lining up in his pits. He's obviously struggling there. It is now timing him. So we'll just keep an eye on this. Let's just see if that goes to 10 seconds. We know it was a 10-second stop-go penalty. It's gone over. Maybe he's just wanting to do either fuel or tires or something, because that's not a penalty that he's serving. He was in there for too long.
It might be that he didn't realize that there's so little time left on the clock for this race. I don't actually know why he would go into the pits with so little time left.
Unless he's got damage, he's still in the pits. Usually if you're in the pits for so long, it's damage, because a fuel stop is not going to take this long, and a penalty is not going to take this long.
Definitely, yeah. It might be that the damage is just so severe that he can't get the car around the track properly, and he's just trying to get the car fixed so that he can at least finish the race and not get a DNF and get 0 points.
We did see in the one shot when we were watching Ardern, we saw him going off, so perhaps he just hit the barrier and his steering is now off to the side and he's hoping to have that repaired. But then he'll probably be in the pits to the end of the race.
Very long, yeah.
So Ardron is still in front. His lap times are still looking good. A 56.1 in the last lap, and Jandre behind him a 159.0. So Jandre's times have just dropped. So Ardron seems to be the one that's nice and smooth. I was saying Jandre is the one that's nice and smooth, but perhaps he's now struggling.
So it might be that Adrian can control the car better under a slide. And Jandre doesn't enjoy the sliding that much, or struggles to control it with a slide.
Let's watch him in the S's. This was where Jandre was noticeably better in the practice and the qualifying with how smooth he was. Obviously Ardron is a lot more aggressive, and qualifying could extract more from it, but Jandre's looking smooth enough there. Maybe he's just being a lot more cautious. You can hear the lift on the throttle.
I think his rear tires are just gone, and he's trying not to risk losing the rear end of the car going through that, because there's also quite a little bit of undulation in the track, and with these cars that also puts them off really quickly if you go over a little bit of a hill a little bit too fast while you don't have a lot of downforce or traction in the back. So it might be that Jandre is just trying to conserve the car up to in these last, there isn't even a minute left. 50 seconds left of the race.
I've just put up the car data so we can see the throttle position and the brake positions here. But you can hear the revs and how he's playing with the throttle a lot. But let's watch his throttle position, because I'm pretty sure they are tiptoeing around at this point of the race.
You can also see him entering into this corner now. There isn't a lot of brake input. With the tires wearing off so much, there also won't be a lot of braking traction, of course, never mind just driving and steering traction.
I think Adrian will have to do another lap, or is he going to roll off?
I think
he's crossed the line. He'll be doing another lap.
There will be another lap.
Playing with fire. He could have just rolled off and finished safely, but deciding to keep going. A little bit of a drift on there as well, looking good, nice and smooth. I think he's just in his element at the moment and enjoying it so much.
Yeah, he got into that zone, definitely. And the thing is, if you were to go back to pits and put on fresh tires again, you're gonna have to drive around again for 35 minutes to get the tires to wear down to be able to play with a car like this. So with what's there, 17 seconds, 17 and a half seconds, almost 18 seconds between him and Jandre. So I believe he's just enjoying this last lap. Jandre as well doesn't seem to be pushing too hard or racing too hard. I believe everybody's made peace with their positions that they obtained now.
We see a little bit of a slide from Jandre. So he's taking it easy, but still the car wanting to slide on him. Locking up the brakes there as well, locking up the inside left, I think. Front left. Jandre actually looking quite smooth at this point as well. He's closed the gap a bit to Jandre as well. Now down to 15 seconds between them. So if something happens, you never know, he might capitalize and pinch that second place from Jandre.
And there's still less than a second gap between Jandre and Donovan. So I don't want to call it, what do you guys call it? The commentator's curse. But Yandre still does have this position to lose should he lose the car.
Adrian comes across the line while we're watching there. I didn't even notice to take the win. So congratulations, Adrian.
Well done. And all of them said in the driver's briefing that they expect to do a pit stop for tires, and all of them, or most of them, everybody that finished at least, except for JP, all of them did it on one set of tires.
Looked like Jean-Andre flashing his lights a bit there. Coming across the line, taking second place, so a nice podium position. Jean-Andre will take the final podium position, so third place to Jean-Andre.
Yeah, I believe something happened to Donovan, as the gap between them is now 7 seconds.
Car does look a little bit crumpled. All corners of the car look a bit crumpled, so he's definitely been off. That's the thing with a beautiful skin like that and shiny, and that you just straight away notice the dings on it. And JP in the background also coming across the line now to take a solid fifth place. And the other drivers have all had DNFs, so that's a top 5 only. All right, we're going to jump to a quick ad break, and then we'll be back with the interviews of the top 3. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly. right, welcome back everybody. So we are now here at the conclusion of the round 5 from the Suzuka circuit in Japan. We of course have our top 3 drivers for the interviews. So congratulations to our top 3, Adrian Nel in first place, Jean-Louis de Toy in second place, and Yandre Dippenaar in third place. Let's start with Adrian. Adrian, this was an interesting round. From the practices, you seem to be struggling with the car being a bit erratic and very aggressive, to getting the fastest lap in qualifying by some margin, to being extremely smooth and controlled in the race. So that was overall quite an amazing round to watch. How was the round from your point of view? Did you struggle with tyre wear in the race? Because you also went right to the end and we were expecting to see all the drivers doing stops and none of them did.
I didn't have a lot of practice, to be honest with you. I had a bit of problems this morning getting onto the server and such. Got in. I've at least done a lot of laps on the circuit, so the learning the track wasn't an issue. I was just getting used to this menace of a car. Did some setup changes and such, and yeah, I think it worked out for the best. Tire wear was a problem. I also wanted to pit actually, and then I was stretching it, and then I saw nobody else pitting, so I just went to the end. Only had like 16% left on the right front, so the tires were quite knackered.
So the tyre wear was very, very aggressive here. Yet somehow you seem to be getting lots of slides, but managing to keep it smooth enough, actually using the slides to rotate the car. We saw it in the one lap, I think it was coming out of Spoon Curve. You got a nice slide, rotated the car, and then straightened it up, got beautiful exit onto the curb. And then, was that something that you were enjoying, playing with the slide so much?
In this car, not at all, because it bites back quite easily. I had a few moments where I almost thought, well, this is it. But that's what I learned from the last race we had of these cars. I had too much rear wing, and that's scrubbed the front tires, so I took off a lot of rear wing, and it looked like it helped quite a lot with at least the front tire wear, because the rear tires lost on these cars. It's just the fronts that on my end go.
Okay, very interesting. All right, then to second place is Jandre. It looked like coming into this round that you were going to be the pace setter, but going into qualifying, from being the pace setter, you ended up over a second shy of Adrian, but then at the start of the race, you seemed to be hanging in with them, and then, I'm not sure if it was tyre wear or something, but you just started to drop back. Did you have problems with the car and your setup? Did qualifying, because it looked like qualifying, you didn't quite get the perfect lap in going by your times that you had in practice. Did you have problems in qualifying? Did you struggle with tyre wear? How was your race set up?
On my one quarter lap where I had like 800 seconds, I was up 800 seconds, and then TJ spun at the last chicane in front of me, and I crashed into him. So that was my only good lap, and yeah, he kind of spun in front of me and ruined it. So then I just couldn't get another good lap in, but at least it was good enough for second. But yeah, I always knew Adrian, once he came onto the server, he'll probably give me some trouble. And yeah, in the race, there was just no way I could keep up with his pace. Even with the tyre wear, he just got faster and faster, and there was no way I would keep up.
All right, well done, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Yandre, a interesting battle between yourself and Donovan. Donovan suddenly showing some good pace, out-qualifying you. But as the race progressed, I think we were about 10 or 15 minutes in, you started to just catch him and reel him in, and I don't know if it's his tires or what, but he just started to go backwards. You caught him, you made the nice, clean, easy pass on him, and then he started to catch you again, but it seemed to be a bit more erratic. Maybe it was tyre wear playing part. How was the race from your part? Did you perhaps pace yourself at the start so that you would have more tires towards the end of the race?
What I did is some setup changes while we're waiting for the server to kick over, which was a big mistake. And yes, in the beginning I was quite slow. I couldn't catch Donovan. He was pulling away from me, and then he made a big mistake. I got past him, and he regrouped, caught me again, and then almost I braked a bit early for him, and he went past me on the outside onto the grass. And luckily I could have pulled away from him. Otherwise I would have had a difficult race till the end.
All right, of course, in commentary today we've had Peter Murray. Peter, would you like to ask the drivers something perhaps in Afrikaans?
That was moeilijk, nee.
Aardig.
Yeah, to the end of it, I could see all of the drivers were struggling with tire wear. Just before we started with these interviews. Now, if the viewers remember on stream, I said I believe they're about down to 40%. Viewers, they were down to much less. As we heard, Adrian was down to about 16%. Jandre and them was down to about 20% on their tires. So yeah, the loss of control is not loss of driver skill. It's definitely loss of tire wear. In conjunction with the fuel tank starting to run dry. That's actually the only thing that I wanted to ask Dennis to the drivers. How much fuel did you guys run? Did you have to run full tanks of fuel? Was it not necessary to run full tanks of fuel? Because that's also something that Dennis and I were busy discussing during the stream. So yeah, Adrian, Jandre, did you guys run full fuel?
Let's start with Adrian, and perhaps you guys, if you'd like to give us your response in your native languages.
Ek het nie vol fuel gehardloop nie. Definitief nie. Ver van. Daai kar kan baie fuel vat. Maar die tires laas net glad nie. Teenoor die fuel wat jy kan insit hier. So ek weet nie hoe hulle dit sou doen nie, maar ja, ons het seker so 40 liter in gaan. So daar jy kan nog verder gaan.
Baie nie.
Ja, nee, jy kan verder gaan as jy kan die kar dink ek 80 liter insit. Maar die tires gaan nooit laas nie. Behalwe as jy soos om ry op 'n Sunday cruise, maar that's it.
Alright, and then Jandre.
Ja, nee, ek het ook vol fuel ingesit hier. Inteendeel, ek het te veel ingesit, want toe die ding klaar, so kan ek nog soos 8 tot 10 laps doen. Want ek het gedink race pace gaan bietjie vinniger wees as wat ons gery het. Maar ja, nee, so jy hoef glad nie veel fuel te hardloop nie. So, jy moet net genoeg insit vir die hele stint, want jy kan blijkbaar nie fuel nie. Dis wat met Mornay gebeur het.
Ja, jy kan nie fuel in daai vir een of ander rede daai BMW is, dis seker maar as gevolg van die tipe kar wat hy is, jy moet die regte hoeveelheid fuel in die begin ingooi. Ons het nogals gewonder wat met Mornay gebeur het, dat hy pits toe is en toe ge-DNF het. Maar ja, ek het gedink julle sou meer fuel gehardloop het of nodig gehad het, omdat dit so high speed baan is, en ek weet baie van die draaie, behalwe die S-draaie en hy laaste regs daar voor die start finish, die res was alles tamelik high speed, so ek sou gedink dat julle so 'n bietjie meer fuel nodig gehad het.
And then Jandre, to you please.
Ons kan nie so baie fuel gebruik nie, want jy is baie min op die throttle, want die ding wil jou net doodmaak die hele tyd as jy baie hard op die throttle klim. Ek het ook te veel fuel gehad, maar ek het ook agtergekom hoe minder die fuel raak, hoe slegter hanteer die kar, so ek weet nie, ek het seker maar 'n bietjie setup werk om te doen.
Ja, maar seker ook met die tyres wat klaar raak en die gewig van die fuel wat jy verloor op tyres, maak dit seker ook maar taamlik moeiliker.
Heel naweek met practice het ek met 50 liter gery, en dit is ook met daai tipe fuel wat ek my beste tye gery het. Hoe minder fuel ek ingesit het, hoe slegter het my tye geraak. So ek weet nie of die kar 'n balance probleem het, wat ook al nie, maar iewers moet 'n man dit maar uitsort en uitfigure.
Ja, daar is nog 2 van die Duitse die German touring races oor. So daar is nog genoeg tyd om 'n bietjie rond te speel met die fuel en die setup en te kyk wat gebeur vorentoe.
Moet jy my Sondag verder omkrap.
Alright, thank you guys. I'm going to kick you all out while we say our goodbyes. Thank you and congratulations to all of you.
Thanks guys, bye.
Alright. Thank you very much to our drivers and congratulations to all of them. Of course, our next round, we have British touring cars around Road Atlanta, so that should be a different challenge. A lot of undulation around there, so that should be quite fun for the drivers. That's, of course, next week, so they don't have much time to practice. So the server will be up with them fairly shortly. They can jump on and adjust from this beast of a car to those interesting cars, and of course, we'll see a variety of different brands as well. So that will be next week. And then our schedule, so that means next week is Road Atlanta. After that, we have Road America, so staying in America. Once again in the German touring cars, that'll be quite a nice track for these cars as well. Then we head to Lime Rock, once again in America for the British touring cars. Then we go to the home of these German touring cars, which is Hockenheim. That should be an interesting track for these cars. And then the final round, which would be Alton Park or possibly Tony Rust. Fingers crossed it'll be Tony Rust if the track is finished and completed in time. But until then, we will catch you next week. Have a great week, everyone, and catch you all next week.